Hello, my name's Henry. Tonight's story is going to be a little bit different. It's a true story. Something happened to me and involved a friend of mine that used to be a friend of mine. And it's going to be a good one. We used to do a little coon hunting together. And on this particular night, things went from really good to really bad, back to really good. And it all started out one afternoon. We'd planned on going coon hunting that night, so we rested up, slept most of the day, got up long enough to eat and go to the bathroom and go back to bed. So we'd be good and fresh because we'd planned on coon hunting all night long. We both had 2 dogs that we spent a pretty good chunk of money on. They were pretty good hounds. So that evening, about 10, 11 o'clock, we got our gear all ready and checked everything out, make sure everything was good. The flashlights were charged, spotlights were charged, and plenty of ammo. So put on our winter garb because it was winter time out, even though that night it started out being like 40, 50 degrees. You still never took chances because weather can change, real fast, especially if you're quite a ways away from your vehicle, or in our case that tonight, we had walked from his house. So we got all geared up, got our jackets on, and our heavier jackets and coveralls, rubber boots. Got our hunting vest on for carrying the game we'd be hunting that night, in case we got anything. Anybody knows anything about coon hunting, you ain't always guaranteed a good night. It's just a roll of the dice, So we started out, went and got the dogs out of their dog runs and give them a good drink, put them on the lead, left his driveway, headed down the old country blacktop. We walked probably, maybe a quarter mile maybe at most, down to this place that we had hunted down in the big bottoms. And we knew the guy real well because we had to walk right past his house. He had the farm that surrounded my buddy's house, or my buddy's mom and dad's house. So we'd got permission to be back there hunting, and there were several hundred acres back there in that big bottom, lots of big trees. And it was a normal chitter chatter that night, trucks and dreams and where our next hunt might be and the hunts after that. So we walked and talked and laughed about things, about different things that had happened in the past, and it was a real good time starting out. We walked quite a good little ways and finally come to the old field road that goes into the big bottoms, and lots of fields down there, big fields. Some of those fields you couldn't even see the end of them. All around these fields there were big giant cottonwood trees, oaks, pin oaks. Good area to hunt in. So got down to the end of the driveway and come to the first gate. We opened the gate, went in, sat there for a few minutes talking and petting the dogs, talking to them, talking to each other. Decided we better let the dogs go and see what they might pick up that night. So unleashed all of them and let them get a good sniff around and see if they might kind of win something a little bit, hit a track. But we sitting there talking, and a buddy of mine was younger than me, kind of overweight, but he was a lot of fun. We had good times together. After that night, the good times kind of stopped, and he decided that maybe being around me wasn't such a good idea, but that'll come out later on. So we're sitting there chitter-chattering like young guys do, acting foolish and cracking a joke or two, laughing at each other. Dogs, by then, was halfway across that big giant field. That field encompassed about maybe 200 acres. They was already halfway, 3/4 of the way to the end of that field when they opened up. So we got kind of quiet for a few minutes to listen to see what was going on. And all of a sudden they opened up on a hot one. So we made a decision that we better start walking that away because they might end up in that next field that was 175 acres, nothing but field. So we moseyed along, taking our time, just talking as we were walking and listening too, and just enjoying the night. It was nice. Other than the dogs barking, it was peaceful and quiet. Way off in the distance, you could hear the sound of one of the old dryer bins going in the feed mill that was up not too far from my buddy's house. And that was a sound that was kind of comforting, let you know you was in the country. Periodically you'd get the smells of grain. Every once in a while you'd get the bad smell of a pig farm or a cattle farm. If anybody lives out in the country, they'll know those smells, and they don't smell too good. They're not a pleasant smell. But if you ask a farmer, they'll just tell you that it smells like money to them. If money smells like that, I wouldn't be carrying it in my billfold. It'd be kind of smelly. But in any case, to each his own. One man's trash, another man's gold. We walking along, shooting the breeze. Made it through that field. Them dogs had done ventured into the next one. They was down along the creek bank, treed up near a big old giant cottonwood. Great big old cottonwood, probably about 60 foot. So we decided to hang out there for just a little bit and make sure they was going to stay on that tree, that they wasn't just going to bump it. Because sometimes those coons get pretty crafty. They'll go up a tree, especially if they're an old coon, they go up a tree and get them dogs stay on that tree. They go up to a limb, jump out away from the tree, take off, and they'll go up another tree, go out on that limb, jump out, and they'll do that 3 or 4 times just to mess the dogs up. So we want to make sure that these dogs, that what a coon dog does, he'll go up, follow the scent, and if it takes him to a tree, a good coon dog will circle that tree. And he'll go back and smell the tree and smell where the coon went up the tree. Then that dog, if he's really smart and he's a well-seasoned dog, he'll back off of that tree and he'll make a great big circle around that tree to see if that coon didn't try to fool him by going up the tree and jumping out. Young dogs, they don't have that scent. They ain't had enough time to know that that's what these coons sometimes will do. So we don't give them time to check that out and make sure that coon didn't try to fool us. In the country, they call that being hoodwinked. So while they was checking, we was listening, getting our hopes up. Now, back during this time, coon hides were worth about $50, $60 according to how big a coon it was and colorings on it. It's a pretty good chunk of money. Usually, as long as you left the coon foot unskin out on the coon, you could sell the carcass. You get $5, $6 for the carcass. So, wasn't too bad of money. Made a lot of good money doing coon hunting, just for fun and for the money. That was our play money, our dog food money, and dog collar money, and paid for equipment and things. Still left a little pocket change, according to how many coons you got that night. Sometimes you could make $300, $400 a night. Sometimes you only made $50 or $60 a night. Then there were some nights that you just got skunked. That happens in that line of business. But it was still fun just being out there in them woods. It's kind of relaxing. Every man and woman has a relaxation, and back then, fishing and hunting, that was my relaxation. So, we sitting there listening. They started really chopping on that tree. I mean, they was just a-getting it. So we head across that field, get to the tree, and we stopped and sat there and listened just to see if they was going to do it, if they was going to play off of it, or see if they were joking us. Because sometimes coon dogs do that to you. Don't know what gets into them. Maybe they just pranksters. They were just chewing on that bark and digging on that tree with their old feet. So, well, got the old spotlight out. Sure enough, there he sat, about 30 foot up in that tree. So, we got that coon. I can't go into a lot of detail about that because YouTubers don't like that. There's a lot of people out there, the animal activists, and I guess they got their thing and I got mine. So I told my buddy, I said, hold my dog, because we had to put him on the lead, show him we got the coon. I took my hunting vest off, and in the back of the hunting vest there's a pouch that attaches to the back of the vest. And I'm sure that there's people out there that knows what that is, and there's people that don't. For those that don't, it's usually mine's a tan looking vest, and the pouch on the back is orange, and it's got orange pockets, the blaze orange, for like rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting during the day. But I always used it too for coon hunting because I never did like just carrying them in my hand. Easier to put them in that, and it's like a backpack. So we decided we better walk the dogs away from that tree because they'll want to go back and play around that tree and pretend there's another coon up there. And we checked that coon tree real good. That was the only one that we seen in that tree, so it's time to move on. So we hit another field road that goes around and decided we'd go back over on another field, turn loose over there, because at this time, just so happens that year, that whole bottom was nothing but cornfields. It had been bean fields the year before, so they rotate the crops so they get good crops. You don't rotate your crops, and sometimes they don't produce as much. That year, it just happened to be corn, and them coons was tearing that corn up. And when you pick, I don't care what kind of picker you got, there's always a few corn cobs with the corn still on it that gets missed, and that's what them coons count on. That's what your deer and squirrels count on. So we walked on, got 3/4 of the way between the two fields there, and decided we was far enough, we just turned the dogs loose again. Hopefully, they didn't backtrack and go back to that tree. We have had that happen a few times, and it's a little aggravating, but you can't blame the dogs. So we unsnapped them, and luckily they went the direction they were supposed to go, straight ahead. Good dogs. So we decided we'd sit there and chew the fat and I'd light me up a cigarette, sit there and smoke a cigarette, and we'd shoot the breeze for a while. While we was waiting for the dogs, see if they pick up anything around there. Them dogs, they was doing their job real good. They'd run, then they'd make a kind of a circle out there and check around. Because coon dogs, good ones, they don't just run a straight line. They kind of zigzag and everything else, trying to pick up a track anywhere and anyhow they can. Sometimes they'll win those coons those trees. And the meaning of that is, for people that don't know, the dog throws his nose straight in the air. And if a coon's up a tree, that smell will drift down and that dog will get a whiff of it. And he'll sense the direction it's coming from by walking. The closer he gets, the stronger the smell gets. Then he'll check the ground, and he'll check the air again. Personally, I like a dog that checks the air a little bit, but keeps his nose on the ground. But some people like it the other way around, and to each his own. They're dogs. So we had them dogs, and all of a sudden they opened up again. So we sat there for a while listening, and they was zigzagging out there, and then they'd come back to the track and hit it, and they'd sound off. Well, to a country boy, that's like music to your ears. Some people would say that's annoying, but to me back then that was music to my ears. It was nice and relaxing to listen to them old dogs. So they chop and bark a few times, and then they'd stop and sniff. They'd chop and bark, and then they'd howl real loud. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Beautiful sound. All of a sudden, they must have got that track lined out. I ain't kidding you, they tore across that field. There was corn cobs flying, all kinds of dirt flying. I mean, they was in a dead run. They must have hit a hot one. We was laughing because while these crazy dogs take off, they're throwing stuff, and we're ducking and trying to knock stuff out of our way, dirt clods and everything else. These dogs, they got a little anxious. It'd be almost like standing behind a car on a gravel road, and some fool gets in that car and hits the gas pedal and throws rocks all over you. When you look back on it, it's funny, but at the time, it ain't too much fun trying to dodge them rocks and dirt flying at you. But that night, it just seemed funny. We were sitting around laughing about it after we got done spitting a few dirt clods and a few chunks of corn cob, but it was still funny. So after a few choice words and a few chuckles at the situation we was in, decided maybe as fast as they'd gone, we better start heading that way, because who knows? They might chase that coon after 2 to 3 miles. And back then I didn't run, and today's age I wouldn't be running either. So we started walking and dusting the stuff off, spitting some dirt. It was fun. Even though it sounds kind of stupid, it was fun to us because we was young and stupid. But we had a good time. Always a good time. So we going across that cornfield, and like I said, it's nice out. And of course we're walking, beginning to sweat. Like, well, get sweating too much, I got to take some of these clothes off and throw them in the backpack. So we were walking along and wipe a little bit of sweat, take a few steps, wipe a little sweat, take a puff of a cigarette. A buddy of mine was always into chewing. He liked his beech nut. There's so often you'd hear a I was always thankful that he shot that the other way and not on me, because that stuff leave a nasty stain. Every so often you'd hear him over there gagging and choking, where he took a stumble and swallowed a good majority of that. For some reason, he must have been like a goat. He never got sick. course, if he'd got sick, I'd have thought it was funny when he swallowed his chewing tobacco, but he might have found that not so exciting, but it would have been funny to me at the time. So, we walking along, them dogs are just hollering. Then they cut into a loud yodel. That meant they was gaining ground on that coon. That coon better put her in higher gear, because them dogs was bound to catch him. They got longer legs, and they was mad. So we started walking. Of course, like I said, it was cool out, but with all them clothes on, it felt pretty hot. As we went along, the temperature started dropping really fast. So we picked up a little speed walking, so to speak. Of course, like I said, my buddy was heavy, so speed walking was just like a good fast walk. For me, he was kind of dragging along, complaining the whole time, which was usual for him. You mind, you're kind of like Oscar the Grouch. But we tolerated each other. So he's walking along, complaining a little bit, and spit a little bit. We finally caught up to the dogs, and sure enough, there they were, perched up on a pin oak, just a gnawing and tearing at the bark. And every so often, one of them dogs would get a little anxious and reach over and pinch the other one, and they'd hear a yelp and a growl and a chomp. They go back to the tree. Don't know what the meaning of that was, but I guess them dogs just had kind of a squirrely quirk. Never did ever figure that out. Maybe they just got overexcited on the tree. Besides, since they couldn't reach the coon, they'd just reach over and pinch their buddy beside them. But we standing way back away from that tree, because you get too close, you get run over by a dog. Turn the old spotlight on, and sure enough, there's another big old coon up there. So we unalived that coon. Of course, you know what happens if you're a coon hunter. If you don't, you can kind of guess or ask a coon hunter. I don't feel like getting booted by YouTube by going into the details about it. Got the dogs pulled off of him. Made sure that he was done. My buddy took his hunting coat off and stuffed that one, because that way we each had a coon in our backpack. That's the way we done things back then. That way one guy ain't getting worn out carrying coon. My buddy said, "You know, the temperature's dropping." I said, "Yeah, getting kind of chilly." Now, I didn't have a thermometer on me, never ever carried one. I'm just guessing. You be out there in the woods, like we was all the time, you could kind of judge the temperature within 3 or 4 degrees, 5 degrees. But I'm guessing that in that walk, it went from 50 degrees down to the high 30s. And, of course, we'd been sweating, so that didn't help matters either. That sweat gets mighty cold when the temperature drops. Our hair's a little wet, but we didn't care. We was young. We was out there just to have fun and make a little cash. So we debated a little bit on which direction we wanted to go, and thought, well, hell, you know, we're having a good time along this creek bank. We just keep following the creek. Seems like, you know, the coons would be out there eating. They go down and get a drink, come back, finish eating, and they go up a tree. So we decided to cut them loose again. We planned on coon hunting all night. Turned them dogs loose. They went out in that cornfield, kind of scattered out a little bit. They do some circles, sometimes they do a big loop, and all of a sudden, they opened up again. Like, man, this must be a real good night. Them dogs took off, headed straight down that creek bank, right up on the levee. So we decided to sit there and take a break. I decided to smoke me another cigarette and buddy of mine decided that he was going to put him in a new chew. He must have sucked all the juice out of that one, or he swallowed it. I ain't sure which. Like I said, he's part goat, so he never did get sick. I think he could probably eat paint off a barn and never get sick. He ate everything else. So we sitting there yapping and got talking about his cousin that used to hunt with us too. And that particular night, he had other plans. He couldn't go, so it was just me and him. But we still laughed at some of the stuff he used to do. And things that we used to do together when we'd go fishing together. He was a pretty good kid. Funny as hell. Good kid to be around. Grew up to be a nice young man. He's married now and got 3 kids. Don't see him very often, but when I do, it's like we never really parted. We're still them young kids. Bump into him once in a great while, used to, and we'd laugh, talk about old stories. His wife would look at us and say, "You all nuts." Well, we probably was back then, young foolish guys. But anyway, back to the story, we thought we better head toward the dogs, because up ahead of us up there, about 1.25 miles, maybe 2 miles, there was a big old creek up there that fed into this bigger creek. I won't say the name, but there was no bridge up there that they closed off because it got too dangerous to drive across, and the farmers took it over. They made it stronger and put new boards on it. One of them old clack-clack bridges, what I used to call them. Go across them and it'd go clack, 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 clack. Big old iron bridge, wooden floor. Like, we got to catch the dogs before they get to that creek, because otherwise we're going to have to walk quite a ways down to that bridge to go across it, and then cut back. By then, heck, dogs could be about 3 miles away, be almost out of hearing range. Besides that, we'd had to walk to them, because back in those days, we just coon hunted on foot. Ain't like today. Most of these guys, few that do coon hunt, they use side-by-sides, four-wheelers, four-wheel drives, motorcycles. Heck, I've even seen one guy that used a golf cart. Don't ask me how that worked out, but it seemed to work okay for him. He didn't care. He wasn't out to shoot anything. He just liked listening to the dogs run. And we started heading down there, and every so often, one of us mentioned, hope that dogs don't go across that creek, because we're going to have to walk a long way to get across that creek down to that other bridge. Might not be such a fun walk, wear you out faster. But we'd have done her. So we heading toward them dogs, and it seemed like the faster we walked, the faster them dogs was running. We wasn't never ever gaining ground. We were losing ground. But we kept purging along anyway. Periodically we'd stop and I'd have a smoke break, he'd have a spit break. Got to noticing after we quit chattering a little bit, listening to the dogs, like, man, this wind's picking up and it get kind of cold. Now, us young guys, that night we just happened to be really beyond stupid. We didn't listen to the weather forecast. My buddy, he was like, I told you we should have woke up and turned on the news. I said, we don't need that. It surely wouldn't drop much colder than this. He said, I don't know, it seems like it just keeps dropping. So we trudging along. The whole time we're getting further and further away from where we started out. Coming to these big giant woods. On the other side of that woods is where that big old creek is that fed into the bigger creek and that other bridge. Like, man, I hope them dogs are on this side of that creek and not the other side. The dogs sometimes do that to you. That's a coon, he try to outsmart them dogs, get in the water, and if a dog gets in there and gets too close, that old coon get on top of their head and drown them. Our dogs were smart. They were older dogs. But they were still fast. They was tearing it up. So we kept thinking, man, I hope that dog didn't go across that creek. I definitely ain't wading in that water, because that water is probably about 10 foot deep. Sure in hell ain't swimming it. We had to go back to the bridge. So we got down there, and because we were so excited about these dogs treeing, we really wasn't paying attention. It started sleeting on us. Real fine at first, but it seemed like a few steps and then pellets started getting a little bigger. Now we ain't got no face gear on, all we got stocking caps and hoods. No mask, no face mask or anything, just gloves. After a while, them pellets get to hurt and hit you in the face like somebody throwing chat at you. We didn't care, we was young guys. We'd just rough it out. But this buddy of mine happened to have a big old giant red beard. I mean, it was as red as an Irishman. He started laughing. See, if you had more hair on your face like this here, I said, yeah, you look like a red-headed gorilla. If you had more hair on your face, like I've got this big giant beard, them pellets only get me on the cheeks and the forehead. I said, yeah, keep talking. I said, you're going to look funny in a minute, and I hear you holler because you get your beard caught in your zipper and you let out a scream. We laughed a little bit about it, made fun of each other, and kept on walking. Got up there, and them dogs had that coon treed. We done what we needed to do. Well, it was my turn to put a coon in my coat. So I took my hunting vest off and standing there, I was like, woo, yeah, that temperature, she really dropped. I'm guessing by now it's like 13, 14 degrees. My buddy was like, he was a big kid, so he was well insulated. We said a few remarks back that probably wasn't too nice, and I ain't going to repeat them on here because YouTube will not only give me a strike, they'll beat me with it. So you can just imagine two young guys what they're saying to each other. It was all done in fun, but that's the way we were. Young, stupid kids, and would usually say about anything about each other that might get a laugh. And it was all done in fun. Nobody ever got mad. So, putting that coon in my coat, put my hunting vest back on, and it's getting kind of heavy. But at $50 a piece, 3 times 15, that's pretty good wad of money between the two of us. So we take the dogs and walk down to the old metal bridge and go across the bridge there, and on the other side, we turned them dogs loose. While they dilly-dallied around and trying to pick up another track, we leaned up against some trees and sitting there shooting the breeze, making fun of each other and talking about stupid things we'd done together. Next thing you know, them dogs take off in a dead run, but they ain't saying nothing. Sometimes them coon dogs, they do that to you. Till they figure out, get it lined out which way that thing's going before they start opening up. Them dogs took off, and I mean, they was in a dead run. Before you know it, they was halfway across that field. I mean, they was booking. I don't even know if you could have caught them on a motorcycle. Don't think it'd be too fun to try out there in them corn cobs. So, we sat there for a while, talking and razzing each other. Now, my buddy, he was a jolly fellow, but sometimes he acted like Oscar the Grouch. You just had to kind of overlook it. That was just him. Never mean no harm. Sometimes we'd be sitting there joking, and all of a sudden he'd get quiet. A lot of people didn't know him, think he was mad. No, he was just thinking of something smart I like to say back to me. I was always kind of quick-witted, and sometimes he had to think about something, dig down deep in that nasty bag and find something to throw back at me. It was always tick for tack, though. If I wasn't aggravating him, he was aggravating me. All in good fun. The worst and the worst was sometimes the better and the better of those chit-chats and curse flingers, as we called them. Got to know that field pretty good walking through there. I'd only seen it from the road, this field we were going into. But I'd been back there a few times, but never ever stopped and walked in the woods, just kind of looked at across the fields. Them dogs is really a-barking. Sounds really nice. Well, so we better maybe head toward them. Wind's kind of blowing a little bit. Temperature's dropping. We're starting to get a little chilly. We kept walking. It seemed like the temperature just keep falling. Finally it got so cold, started sleeting even harder. Snow mixed in with it. Now it's come down and it's really hurting, and the temperature's really cold. My hands start tingling. I wasn't going to say nothing because there would have been a few funny words that come out that we would have thought was funny. A lot of people thought it was pretty bad, but that's the way it was back then. So I'm walking along and I'm squeezing my hands inside my gloves, trying not to say nothing, because it's like a game of chicken. Trying to see who's going to complain about the cold first, me or him. He probably thinking the same thing. So I'm going to tough it out a little bit. I wasn't going to say nothing. We got all the way across that field, and them dogs that went around that fence and up into this big tree line, up this huge hill. Next thing you know, as we're walking, the dogs disappear, the sound over the hill, and you could just barely hear them. My buddy was sitting there just out of no. I mean, he broke the silence. He was like, "Are you kidding me? Over top of the hill? This fat old boy don't like hills." I said, "Well, if you got any alternatives, I'm all ears. But otherwise, looks like we're going to be going across this cornfield and across that hill up there." Well, he stammered a little bit, cursed a little bit, spit. Well, we was heading up there, and of course it's sleeting and it's snowing like a beat of a band. Luckily for me, when we got to the base of that hill, them dogs had turned, and now they're coming around the side of the hill. And instead of my buddy sitting there and keeping his mouth shut, that coon might have come past us and went up a tree there not far from us. But oh no. He starts complaining, bitching, growling. That coon must have heard us and got to laughing at him, so I can figure, and thought, hey, better make a right turn. That coon went out in that field. He had them dogs running in circles. And I'm like, if you would have just been quiet, that coon might have come up here, run up your leg, and jumped in that pouch. That'd been the end of the game. Of course, he was growling at me because I was harassing him. All of a sudden, now the snow and sleet's coming down so hard you can't see. Can't look up. Lights ain't going to shine very far because that snow and stuff coming down. Almost look like walking through pea soup. Them old corn stalks, they get pretty gnarly when it gets cold out. You gotta be careful you don't fall on one because it could pierce your side or your leg, your forehead, your mouth, whatever. According to how you fall on it, it hurt you pretty bad. We didn't care. We was young. So we going across the field, and snow had picked up so bad we didn't realize how long we'd be out there. That old snow was starting to get ankle deep. We kept trudging along and finally found the dogs. They was set down a big old cedar tree. Now, if anybody knows anything about cedar trees, it's hard to spot a coon in that cedar trees because them fronds. Coon get up there, if he's smart, he'd get up there and hug the center of that tree and just sit there quietly. some coons might go all the way to the top, and that limb bends over. They let it bend almost to the ground, they jump out and take off. Well, just so happened that night, that coon got up there, and he got him a good cozy seat, sitting like it was a recliner. So we got up there, and after shining around, we finally spotted him sitting there. His eyes, he'd open and look and close them. We kept looking, and that buddy of mine, he said, well, you grab the dogs, and I'll go up and look up through the center of the tree. I said, I don't think that'd be too smart of an idea. You look mighty funny, that coon jump out on your head. I said, better stay back here, and we just shine. We found him and got him. Let the dogs do their business. And they've done. Picked him up, and I say, hey, it's your turn. So he took, after complaining a little bit, he took his coat off, hunting vest, put that coon in there, and put his coat on and his hunting vest. So we got the dogs ready, and I said, well, do we go straight ahead, or which way you want to go? Your call. I called the last time. Yeah, let's just go ahead and just keep going the direction we're going. Sounds good to me. It's getting pretty cold, but I wasn't going to complain because I didn't want to be harassed. I was going to do the harassing. So we walk them probably about a quarter mile, turn them loose again. Man, them dogs took off. Run around in their circles, sniffing. Then they'd run straight, and then they'd back up, and then they'd run again. Finally, they thought they got wind of something, so they headed out in a straight line, all four of them. All we seen was nothing but white tails. So we sat there and shot the breeze for a while and made fun of each other. Them dogs was really cutting loose. Well, we let them run and see how many circles that coon makes in that field before they put him up a tree. So we sitting there shooting the breeze, listening to them dogs, talking about old times and having a good old time. I decided to light me up a cigarette, and of course my buddy that's chewing, he's complaining about the smoke, and I'm complaining about him spitting. I figured that made us even. We laughed at each other and decided we better head for the dogs, because don't want them things getting too far ahead of us. They got 4 legs, we only got 2. So after doing that math and figuring that the dogs might have a better chance of outrunning us than us outrunning them, we better get on the move a little bit. So we headed toward the dogs again. Now the snow is almost up knee deep. That's how hard it was snowing. You couldn't see but maybe 5-10 foot in front of you, and then trying to shine a flashlight through that. If you ever drove a car or a truck, anything in the snow at nighttime with your headlights on, you know what I'm talking about. We walking along, and I was like, I can't take it. I got to say something. I said, man, is your hands cold? You get cold? Oh, yeah, just a little bit, but I was going to wait and see if you was going to complain. I said, well, I guess tonight was my night to complain first. So if anybody knows anything about young guys that ain't got nobody there to correct them and keep them in line, we started talking trash on each other, and I ended up being the brunt of most of the jokes that night. Because I squealed about being cold. So, well, we walk along, that old wind picking up. And now the dogs, we can just barely hear them. So it started getting so cold, I pulled my glove up, made a fist, pushed my glove back down, left the fingers stick up that was empty, didn't have my fingers in it. That keeps your hands a little warmer. So any of y'all get out there and get lost, or your car break down and you're sitting there with your gloves on in the car, you might remember that take your glove and pull it up, make a fist, and then pull your glove back down, leave the finger stick up. It might be the difference between frostbite and a little discomfort. So My buddy said, question. I said, yeah. He said, them gloves looks funny on you. Are they really that big? I said, no. My hands got really cold, so I pulled my fingers out of the finger hose and made a fist in each one of them. He goes, well, I might try that. So I was sitting there watching him. He doing the same thing, and he goes, hey, he said, that ain't too bad. He said, my finger's still cold, but that make it a little warmer. I said, yeah. So we walking along, and our pant legs are wet from the snow. Not only is our pant legs warm, wet, but so is our coverall leg. So we were walking, and I'm not kidding you, it dropped down cold, bad cold, mid to low teens. Them dogs was way across that field and started in the other one. So we were sitting there taking our time and yapping and trying to keep from freezing. But we wasn't going to leave our dogs. They meant a lot to us. They was family, even though they was, well, people say they just coon dogs, but still, they were ours. You don't leave your coon dogs if you're any kind of a person at all. Some guys, you hear the old timers that would get tired of walking toward their dogs, and they'd just throw a coat down, and they'd go home. Next day they'd come down with a truck. There that dog would be curled up on that coat. They'd pick the dog up and take it home. But me, I never wanted to test that theory. Even though I'd heard a lot of guys do it, I wasn't going to. Them dogs mean a lot. If it's that cold out, and me and the dogs are out there, I ain't going to say, heck with it, you dogs fend for yourself, I'm going home. No, I always went to get my dogs. So we pressed on, and I'm getting a thought in my head, because my buddy has no clue about some of the things I was going through. And to give you a little instant, in case you don't know, I was an experiment child in the military. I wasn't born like the rest of you. I was made in a lab and then given to my parents. I was born with a lot of, I guess you'd call them gifts. At the time I called them kind of curses. But that night, that curse turned into be one heck of a good gift. We was walking and started getting hard to walk, and I was like, well, this is kind of weird. All of a sudden I started hearing whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And as my cover haul legs, they had froze solid, and they was rubbing together. I looked over there, and my buddy said, your pant legs froze? Yeah, ain't you been hearing that swishing? He goes, well, I couldn't hardly hear it over the wind, but I thought I heard it sound like two pieces of sandpaper. Yeah, that's my coveralls. That's what the worst part about it is, my blue jean pants, they're froze too. Snow's been going up between my coveralls and my boots. And I said, I forgot to tuck my pant legs in my boot. And I said, I really don't like that. It gets kind of uncomfortable walking. So I just pulled them over top of the boot. Which is not really, I guess, that smart because they got wet. But that night I decided to choose comfort over discomfort. So we walking along, my buddy starts complaining because them corn stabs are kind of weird to walk in when they froze and you got a little snow on them. They tend to get a little slick and can be dangerous. But we're plunking along, and I'm thinking to myself, we're probably not going to get back before we get really bad cold. And we should have turned around, maybe, but I ain't a person to just leave my dogs anywhere. Why let them suffer while I'm sitting in where it's warm? That ain't me. If my dogs are cold out there, then we're both out there, me and the dog. If I'm going to go in where it's warm, I'm taking them dogs in where it's warm too. Don't believe in letting any kind of animal suffer. So now I got the dilemma. I'm feeling these Feels like wire brush needle pokes inside my gloves. Now I know I'm getting in trouble because hypothermia could be setting in. I gotta be careful of that. My buddy kept thinking, and saying out loud, are we lost? I was like, nah. I didn't want to tell him that because he'd have really freaked out. I hear him back there. You sure we're not lost? Nah, we're not lost. I don't want him panicking. So we walk a little bit further and he's like, I don't remember any of these woods. I said, it'll be alright. Let's just keep on heading toward the dogs. He goes, it sure is getting cold. I said, yeah, I know. My teeth are about ready to chatter. He starts laughing. He goes, I ain't worried about my teeth chattering. I'm just worried about my fingers and my toes. My fingers and toes are cold too, to the point of where they were starting to hurt. But we kept on going. We got all the way across that field. Them darn dogs went down, walked across the ice on the creek. Was over in the field across the creek from us and down. I told my buddy, I said, I ain't walking across that ice. We're cold enough. We fall through that. We really won't make it. So I'm trying to decide. Do I tell him? Do I just open a portal? Because he didn't know it. He didn't know that part of me. Was he going to freak out? I'm getting cold and starting to feel the first noticings of frostbite starting. My buddy, he's really complaining. And with the way the snow was, them big spotlights were really good. I mean, you could shine quite a long ways with them, but when it's snowing and sleeting like that, the snow and sleet kind of blocks out the distance you can see with those. We could hear them over there. We kept walking, and all of a sudden, that wind, started just howling. Now, every great once in a while, we'd hear them dogs. Finally, I told my buddy, I said, hey, if I tell you something, are you going to get scared and freak out? He was like, well, it's according to what you're going to tell me. If you're going to tell me you're gay, damn right I'm going to freak out. I said, no, nothing like that. I said, there's some things you don't know about me. He raised his eyebrow up like he was getting concerned about what I might tell him. I said, well, you know how there's times when I'm not at school and I don't come over to your house for a while? That's because I have to go back to the projects that I've been working in. He goes, oh, in school? I said, no. I says, projects, we don't need to really go into them. I'll tell you more about it some other time maybe. But I said, we got a choice here. Are we going to get frostbite, take a chance on freezing to death? Or will you trust that I'm a good person and I'm not going to hurt you? But we're shooting craps right now. There ain't no way we can make it back to that road before we'd freeze to death or start losing skin. Choice is up to you. Can you handle what I'm going to tell you? Can we still be friends? I'd known him since being a little kid. He goes, well, we really ain't got no choice because there ain't nothing out there we can burn to start a fire. I said, no, there ain't. That was the other mistake we made. He goes, well, I ain't got no choice but trust you. And as if worse wasn't bad enough and things couldn't get any worse, now you're lucky if you can see 3-4 foot in front of you. And he goes, well, you better make up your mind. You going to tell me or keep me in suspense? I said, well, I was born a lot different than you. My mom and dad ain't my real mom and dad, but they kind of inherited me. I said, but if you sure you can handle it. What you're going to hear is going to be something you probably won't believe, but I'll prove it to you. We got to make up our minds. Are you going to stick with me? You ain't going to take off running, are you? What are you going to do? I said, well, I know how to open portals. We need to get warm. Fast. He goes, are you joking me? I said, no, I'm not joking. I said, here, take a hold of this dog lead, and there's going to be a portal up here open. And I said, this way I don't lose you, because I know you walk slower than I do, and especially in this snow. So I took the dog lead and snapped it on my belt. He took the end that had the loop, put his hand through it, and he goes, well, if it's going to get me warm, I don't care. So I walk him down through this tree line, and all of a sudden, my frequency hit its frequency, and there it was. Big old giant tree. The way it was snowing, I couldn't tell what kind of tree it was. I was just glad to see it. I told my buddy, I said, see this big tree up here? I think that's where it's coming from. He goes, what's coming from? That's the portal that got opened. So we walking, starts getting warmer as we're walking. My buddy's like, is it getting warmer, or am I just losing my mind? I said, no, it's getting warmer. So we get up on the other side of that big old tree, and there's a big upside down, like a pyramid. We walk around that tree, and I see that pyramid in that tree. I said, do you trust me? He goes, I ain't got no choice. I'm cold and I want to get warm. I said, me too. I said, follow me. I stepped into the view of that tree, the hollow opening. He said, there's enough room for me too? I said, well, yeah. He steps in there, and if you took a like an 8-foot diameter in there, but he'd come in there, and my God, he said, am I imagining things? I said, no, you're not imagining things. I said, so you scared? He goes, no, it's warm in here. He said, my God, he said, I got to take my coveralls off. So we both started peeling our coats and coveralls off, gloves. I said, what are we going to do if we take our shoes off and our feet's black? He just kind of laughed. We started peeling our boots off. I said, I ain't being funny, but I ain't taking my blue jeans off. So, notice inside that tree there was a bunch of leaves. Real deep, probably about 2 to 3 foot deep leaves in there. So we plopped down on the leaves, and that was like a big old feather mattress. Well, my buddy's sitting there, and he goes, man, my belly is starting to kind of rumble. So I'm going to tell you something right now. If you got a break wind, you best aim it toward that opening in that tree, because if you think I'm going to sit here and choke and gag just to stay warm, I'd like to take my chances out there freezing to death other than smelling that gas bomb you're getting ready to drop. He goes, no, I'm just thinking about something. I said, what that? He goes, a great big old Butterfinger would sure taste good. I was like, now you did it. I didn't bring no treats or anything. I think the other time I probably would have had something in my backpack, but I ain't got nothing. Unless you want to chew on a bullet. He had started laughing. And I thought about it. I thought, that's pretty damn good. He started something here. I said, well, what about a big old Snicker? I'd like to have a big old Snicker bar. One of them, not the short one, but the great big king size. So he's sitting there and he's thinking about it, and I'm thinking about my candy bar. He goes, how about a whatchamacallit? I said, nah, a great big old Kit Kat. We're both sitting there aggravating each other about candy. And he goes, no, I got it. A cherry pie with Cool Whip and ice cream. Now he's making me sick. Like, dude, I think I ate the whole thing. Now I'm feeling kind of full and bloated. So we sitting there waiting for them dogs, and he's laughing. All of a sudden we hear sniff, sniff, sniff. A few leaves and stuff crunching in the snow. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Them dogs would track us back to that tree. So in popped one dog. Here comes the second dog. The last two tried to squeeze through the opening at the same time, and it's kind of like the Two Stooges instead of the Three Stooges. Finally, they both got in. They come up there and shake the snow and ice off their back. They lay down on our coveralls. Now we're laying there, leaned up against the backside of that tree on the inside. It's like 80 degrees in there. Nice. My hands started actually hurting then, because they started unthawing. They was real white, red on them a little bit. I knew I was going to be okay. Just got a touch of frostbite, not bad. So I'm sitting there blowing on my hands, rubbing them together, trying to get circulation going. My buddy's over there clicking his toes. He used to always do that, drive me nuts. I told him, I said, you're going to look mighty funny and you keep clicking them toes together like somebody snapping their fingers. I'll reach out there and give me a handful of snow and throw in your sock. He just kind of laughed off a little bit. Next thing I know, I hear snoring. What the hell is snoring? Looked over, my buddy sound asleep, mouth wide open. Too bad it was wintertime. If it had been summer, I'd grabbed a fly and throw it in there between his lips. Wait for him to wake up, coughing and gagging, cussing. I don't know how that man did it. He had a full big old mouth to chew in and was sound asleep. Wonder he didn't choke to death. So I'm sitting there, and now I got him snoring. I got two dogs snoring. One is yipping in his sleep, and the other one is running in place in his sleep. It was like sleeping with 4 kids and 1 toddler. So I'm sprawled out there, kind of dozed off a little bit, waiting for it to quit snowing and sleeting. And I'm trying to get a little bit of sleep, and of course I got the symphony going on there beside me, the sleep symphony. That's okay, I'm still enjoying the warmth. So I keep looking, and I'd doze off for a little bit, and I'd look out, and I'd doze off for a while. Every so often, look over and listen to the symphony over there, the snoring symphony. Couldn't really get any good sleep, because got them over there in the snoring section, one trying to outsnore the other. But it was a good time. So I'm sitting there, and several hours passed. Snow and sleet still getting deeper out there. And I'm thinking, well, should I wake him up? Nah, I better wait till the sun starts peeking a little bit. So I can act, 'cause I was lost by then. But I wasn't going to tell him that, because he would really freak out. I figured he had enough excitement for one night. Finding out that his buddy that he thought he knew so well, he really didn't know too well. Only to find out he was a freak of nature. But I was hoping that, since we knew each other for so long, that he would just accept it as being part of me, and it would go on. But as time went on, it didn't happen that way. But anyway, back to the story. I just dozed off for a little bit, thinking about what my next step was going to be, and hoping that he didn't ask too many questions in the next few days. So I doze off for just a little bit longer. I wake up and I'm thinking I see the sun peeking, so that was cool. I'm like, well, I'll let him sleep a little bit longer and I'll catch me a little bit of nap, and then I'm going to check my clothes and make sure they're falling out, or at least dry. So I dozed off a little bit after checking my clothes. Only to wake up to hearing a symphony over there echoing up through that tree. Happened to look out the crack in that tree, and lo and behold, it stopped sleeting and snowing. Looked out, and I could hear something way off in the distance, and it was the sound of something scraping. I could hear a diesel engine rumbling, an old Detroit diesel engine. Closer it got, better it was sounding. It didn't sound like it was real far off. Then all of a sudden I noticed these here flickering lights and a set of headlights way off in the distance there, probably about a mile and a quarter, 2 miles away. Like, all right, that's a snowplow. So I woke my buddy up. I say, you think y'all quit snoring for a minute? And starting to crack daylight, and there goes a snowplow. He goes, you been awake all this time? I said, nah, I dozed off a few times. I said, periodically I'd wake up from you guys' a symphony over there, snoring, one trying to outsnore the other. Then you toss in the one dog that's kicking. I said, but think we ought to wait for a while longer, let you sleep a little bit longer, and then we'll head toward that road? He goes, no, I'm rested up pretty good. The dogs are still asleep. They ain't even moving. They're just snoring. Well, we put our coveralls back on, our coats and hats and gloves, which now dried out. Our pant legs ain't quite dried out yet, but they're damp, but tolerable. So we stand up, stretch a little bit. Decide before we take off, we better sneak out around inside that tree and water the snow a little bit. We've been asleep in there quite a long time, we thought. So he's on one side of the tree, I'm on the other side of the tree, and we're watering the snow, painting pictures in the snow. Dogs are still sleeping there. So we go back inside the tree, and I mean, it's huge in there. It's a lot huger than what it looked like from the outside. So my buddy said, is there anything else you want to tell me? I was like, no, but I do got to close this portal. He goes, but I don't see a portal. I said, well, portals come in different types and sizes. I said, this one just happened to be one that was put into a tree because we needed shelter. He said, well, sometime when we're not so tired and wore out, we'll have to talk about this. I said, okay. I thought he was cool with it. We woke the dogs up, let them come out and stretch a little bit and do their business. Put them on lead. Daylight then, not real daylight, but I mean you still had to run with headlights, but sun was starting to peak pretty good. So all of a sudden we was heading toward that road. After walking quite a good little ways, we made it to the road. My buddy goes, you recognize where this road is? I said, yeah. We just got to turn, when we get on the road, turn to the right, and it'll take us right back straight to your house. As we walked, we kind of joked along, and it was a little more quiet because he was tired, and I was still a little bit tired, but we pressed on, and finally come to his driveway, and he goes, well, I'll be damned. We was quite a ways away. I said, yeah, a couple miles, probably about 5-6 miles at most. He goes, we get in, we'll have some bacon and eggs. That sounds good to me. I said, you made me hungry when you talking about food earlier. I said, but who's cooking, me or you? And he goes, by now Mom's up. She's already cooking probably. We walked up and took the dogs out to their kennel, put them all up, make sure they had food, and we give them some water. They ate a little bit, and them dogs climbed in a box of straw and went to sleep. So we made a beeline for the house, only to find his mom and dad standing at the door waiting for us. So we left our coats out there in the shed because it's nice and cold out. Them coons wouldn't go to waste. So we opened the door. Oh my God, you talking about getting a cussing. Man, they was mad. Just where in the heck have you guys been? Where in the heck have you guys been doing? Been coon hunting. We put our coats out there in the shed with the coons in it. We just put our dogs up and fed watered them. What you guys eating? Eating? Where you guys been for the past 4 days? What are you talking about 4 days? We just left last night to go coon hunting. Got caught out in this snow. My buddy started to speak up about that tree, and I said, you shut up. She goes, what was that? I said, we curled up beside a tree, try to get away from the snow. That's how come we're cold. So where you guys been for 4 days? It ain't been no 4 days. You guys, are you crazy? You guys been gone for 4 days. We're looking at each other like they're nuts. So they let us come on in the house, and they're still a little TO'd at us. But they're still insisting it's been 4 days. They didn't seem like no 4 days to us. So in the meantime, the guy that we'd hunted on his property that night, he's coming over to check and see if we made it in, I guess. While he was gonna go get feed for his cattle. He come up to the door, knocked on the door, and of course, she said, yeah, they're okay. He goes, well, where they been for the past 4 days? She goes, they're claiming they's only gone just overnight. So he come in the kitchen, and he goes, boys, I know I ain't your parents, but where you where you guys been for the past 4 days? Like, y'all nuts. We went coon hunting last night and just made it in. We got caught in that snow. They said, you know, it's been snowing for the past 4 days. Y'all crazy. We argued and we didn't believe them, they didn't believe us. But we had the coons to prove it. We'd been coon hunting. So, wasn't a couple of months after that, my buddy, every time I call him to go coon hunting or go fishing or something, he just started, well, you know, I'm going to be kind of busy. Sometimes he wouldn't even answer the phone. So I took that as a hint that that night scared him to death, and he didn't really want much to do with me after that. That's fine. I lost a good friend, but still have the memories of all the fun we had together up until that time. Never forget that night. Thank you for listening. See you again on the next one. This is Henry signing out.